Okay, so that's what we will do. Oftentimes we go through things in life that change us, and we know that they've changed us somehow. Something has happened inside of us and we don't know what that is. And I think we just move on, and then the next thing happens, and then the next thing happens, and then the next thing happens, and we never actually reflect, we never actually consolidate what actually has happened inside of us, how it's changed us. And so we actually miss out on a lot of lessons. We actually miss out on a lot of wisdom that can actually be cultivated through these different experiences. So my intention of putting this talk together is actually so we can reflect, we can learn, we can integrate, and we can let this last year actually change us, transform us. This was not an easy talk for me to put together because it has not been an easy year for all of us. As you go through this talk, you might have difficult emotions rise up inside of you, because this has been like that for me, and I've had to ground myself multiple times in the last week just thinking about all of this. And so what I want you to do, if you do start to feel overwhelmed, I want you to take some deep breaths and breathe out through the mouth in a forceful way to release what is happening. So we are going to soften up into the emotion. We're not going to fight or flight it. We're actually going to soften into the emotion. I want you to feel the ground underneath your feet. If you need to kick off your shoes, if you're wearing any shoes, if you need to kick those off, go right ahead. Feel the ground underneath you. You are supported. You are not destabilized. You are standing. You are firm. Imagine the roots underneath your feet. And I want you to put your hand on your heart, just like this. There's a lot of neural networks, connections in our heart center. And when you put your hand on your heart, I want you to tell yourself, I am safe, I am strong, because you have been through a lot, okay? And do this at any point. Do this now during this talk, or do this at any point you feel scared or worried. It's important to feel the ground underneath your feet, because we can often feel very unsupported. So let's start off by saying what we all have witnessed this year. So, of course, there was the pandemic, and lots of our public safety and individual freedoms. There was ongoing tension. There were so many civil and social movements. All the while, we're holding on to all of these things that are happening inside of us when it comes to our personal and public safety. So many things like the George Floyd movement and the Black Lives Matter, LGBT, all forms of discriminations that were coming up, all sorts of movements when it comes to gender-based violence in different parts of the world. That was all happening, and we were witnessing that. And because we were all indoors, we were actually streaming a lot more. We were watching a lot more. We were consuming a lot more media. We wanted to know what was happening with the pandemic, but all the while we were also we were witnessing all the other things that were happening in the world. And we're holding on to all of these different things. They were actually all sorts of natural disasters, most, costly weather disasters in Texas history with, snow in Texas, devastating wildfires around the world, Australia, Colorado, California, flooding around the world, the Beirut explosion that happened that literally left us devastated, and still leaves us devastated. The most active hurricanes. And then there was the locust that happened in East Africa and Asia, the worst in 70 years. And we're watching all of this happen. All the while, there is COVID and all the different changes that we made to our lives, right? That was also going on. So it didn't come one at a time. There were all these economic hardships, the widening income gap, investor behavior that was absolutely erratic. We didn't know what to expect from the market. obviously millions and millions of people losing their jobs, and now with filing for unemployment or being unemployed. Businesses shutting down, so many of our beloved businesses, big and small, shutting down. And, there was all this political unrest happening as well, whether it was Poland, Russia, Belarus, Nigeria, Bolivia, the United States, the elections, Capitol Hill, all of this stuff was going on, and it all happened last year. That's a lot. So I want us to just sort of stay with that for a second and say, wow, we just witnessed the most difficult year, a year that will be talked about for years and years to come. People will talk about 2020 and what happened this last year, not just because of the pandemic, but because of everything else that came to the surface, and everything that happened around the world as a result of it. Not as a result of it, but also in addition to it. So just take a deep breath and let's just name that. Ground yourself. You've been through a lot, you've witnessed a lot, and you've lost a lot. And I just want to name some of the things we have lost and found this year. And these things, they seem small, but they really, really fundamentally changed how we view the world, how our world, feels to us, how we feel in the world. We lost our sense of normalcy. We lost our sense of safety, our sense of spontaneity, our economic certainty and security. We lost being able to see people's faces, our freedom to move about when we want, our regular routines of waking up, going to the gym, going to work, rituals like graduations and weddings and funerals. And no matter what we say, no matter what, we zoomed in and we made the most of it. Yeah, but we lost that togetherness, and we lost being able to hug each other and be with each other during these very happy moments, but also these very, very devastating moments. We couldn't be with each other in the way we wanted to be. Childbirth was happening, and mothers couldn't be there for their daughters, and deaths were happening, and we couldn't be there with our loved ones when they passed, or to be there when we could bury them. These are really, really significant things that happened that we lost. We lost our colleagues that left because they wanted to go either back home, or they wanted to change jobs, or they just lost their jobs. We lost our sense of balance. Everything we do in our day balances us. It gives us a rhythm. It gives us a routine, right? We lost our footing. What do you mean I have to work from the inside? What do you mean my home is now my workplace? What do you mean my home is now a school? It's very destabilizing, because we didn't just lose the things that were outside of us. We lost our home. We felt homeless in so many ways, because my home is not a school. My home should not have to be a gym. My home should not have to be a workplace. So there was a sense of loss inside of us that we couldn't even name from that homelessness. We lost our ability to engage in things that energize us. So all the while we were witnessing all of these things happening in the world, the things that feed us, the things that, nature or vacations or going out with friends or hanging out with our family, these are the things that energize us we didn't have access to. We lost, obviously, our ability to plan the future. What are you doing a week from now seems like too big of a task or an ask. What's going to happen after spring break? What's going to happen in summer? Am I leaving this summer? Am I staying this Christmas? These kinds of things that we just used to do. We would just plan, and we don't have that anymore. Being able to see our extended family in person. So many people have not seen their family members. So many people have not actually been able to, even if they live next to them, they can't see them just due to, COVID, etc. Our sense of personal agency. And then we lost a lot of lives this year. And some of those lives were very famous lives. Some of those lives were our personal friends and family members. We lost parts of our childhood also, like with the death of Sean Connery or Alice Trebek or Irfan Khan, Rishi Kapoor, Shashant Rajput, Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. We lost our heroes in our mind, in our, these guys, we project our desire for superpowers onto them, and then our superheroes died. And so we didn't just lose these things, we lost our past, because so much of our past is linked to some of these stars that died, our movies, our memories, Ruth Ginsburg, Kobe Bryant, these superheroes for us that created a sense of history. We felt like we were losing our past, we were losing our present, and what's going to happen to our future seemed very uncertain. And that's a lot that we lost this year. And when I think about all of that, it really moves me. It moves me to tears. It shakes me up, because it was a really difficult year. But with all things lost, there's always things that are found. And so we gained a lot this year too. For sure, whether we wanted it or not, we gained resilience. Okay. We gained heroes. Sorry, guys. This is quite emotional, obviously. We gained appreciation for simple pleasures. Just being able to walk on the beach, just being able to be outside, going to the airport, the things we actually didn't like doing, we look forward to. We gained a chance to embody our highest values, whether they were gratitude, whether they were compassion, kindness, love. We saw that in the world. We gained unhurried time. Things were not as hectic. We were doing a lot, but it just felt like it didn't seem as hectic. We weren't moving so much. Things felt a little bit stiller because we weren't moving so much. Maybe inside there was chaos, but it didn't feel as hectic. We gained savoring the moment. We know the power human beings have because we can innovate as much as we did in the last year, and how quickly we came with the vaccines and how quickly we were able to move as a world indoors. And Zoom, Zoom became a thing, and things that we have been thinking about for the last decade, because technology is not new, but things that we're like, no, we should have flex time. We should be able to work from anywhere. All of a sudden, overnight, it was done. Paradigm shift. There was no incremental shifting. Boom, it happened, and we were in the future. We also gained the ability to be more self-reliant, to care for ourselves, because we didn't have access to our friends caring for us, so we had to do it for ourselves. Saw widespread action, people standing up for what they believed in, gathering for what they believed in. We also had the ability to have higher quality presence with our loved ones. I know I can speak for myself that having dinner time together as a family, my husband, he traveled a lot for work, and I was also very busy here and there doing talks, socializing, friends, but all of a sudden things happened where we were all seeing each other a lot. There's a movie night we established at home, a game night we established at home, dinner together we established at home. These were some deep traditions that sort of shifted us as a family. We have now deeper convictions about what matters to us. We've also gained perspective and flexibility and opportunity to step into the best parts of ourselves. And I want to deep dive into some of these things now, because this is just me saying it all at once, that this is what we gained, but there are lessons here in each one of these bubbles that you see. Lessons about what it means and how do we carry this forward when it means what we savor each moment, or we lean in to our fear. We don't have a choice. We didn't have a choice. We did it. without whether or not recognizing that we were being fearless in that moment or courageous in that moment, whichever way you want to look at it, but we did it. And so I want to actually pull out the lessons and then name them. So these are just some of the lessons. I mean, I'm probably going to be reflecting on 2020 for the next 20 years, but these are just some of the lessons that I know that I have heard people say from the contact that I've had with some of my clients, my family members, my friends, but also some of the things that I've learned, some of the things that I've heard within the communities of the different corporations and parents that I've had access to. And so I would really like to share that with you today. So the lessons that we can take forward. All right, let's see, here we go. All right. So as I go into this, I want us to think about, hardship is always going to be there in one way or another. As human beings, we are all going to lose something or another all the time. This happened to be one of those years that are going to be life-changing, but hardship is always going to be there. It's the human condition. How can you change the way you view hardship? And one of the frames that I want you to hold in your head, and maybe one takeaway that I want you to have, and maybe if you forget everything else that I said, except for the fact that I cried, and one other thing is that we are all alchemists. We can all be alchemists. And alchemists, they basically were, from ages ago, but they actually had the power to change lead into gold. And so how can I transmute? This is not about magic. This is about transmuting and shifting and altering things so they actually become something else. How can I take pain and suffering and transmute that into, and transform that into wisdom and compassion? How can I take this pain and let it deepen me and transform me in some way so that I am more of who I am? Because it cracked open something and out comes more of who I could be. So that's what I want you to hold in your mind. The image of the alchemist. You are the transformer of your experience. And if life gives you hardship, you have the ability to transform that into something else. You don't have to take it the way it's given. Accept it, take that, and transmute that. So hold that image as I go through the next few lessons, okay? And I didn't know how to organize this because I went this way and then I went that way. But the way I decided to end on this is I'm going to go from the outside in. So just let's name some realities in the outside world, but then I'm going to talk more about resilience and grief and values more towards the back end of it. So the first thing is going to be that, guys, technology ain't going anywhere. And this is just going to be the way we work, right? The way we work has fundamentally shifted. And for some companies, it's just the way it is. Now they're only going to be working from home. They've closed down their business, operations and in buildings and things, but they are all working from home. And that might not be the case for everybody. It's not the case for the Lighthouse, but the way we worked has changed for a long time to come. It's this idea of doing Zoom calls has become so normal for us that actually is going to be a very large part of how we work. Flex work is going to be, people are going to be working from different parts of the world. Even Dubai came up with, a working somewhere else, but living in Dubai visa. So this is a reality of the way things are. And remember, it might have worked for you for the last few months and the last year, but a lot of people were burning out this year because I think the model that they were using was working at home and not working from home. They actually didn't shift their reality into working from home means that home office is a reality rather than, oh, let me just finish up this project and let me just finish up there. And then the day blends into the night and the night blends into the morning and people were burning out. And people actually, there was a lot of research on that. People actually worked harder, they worked longer because one, they were probably psychologically numbing themselves from work, with work, because everything else seemed so chaotic. Work actually gives us a sense of order, but they were also not having a model of working from home. So you need a model of working from home. And I do a whole other talk on that, but I just want to highlight that this is going to be a lesson to take forward. You've got to learn how to manage your energy when you are working from home. And you've got to learn how to manage your teams remotely. How do you inspire people? How do you inspire yourself when you are sitting in your home without, shoes on? And how do you show up fully in that sense? And so some of the things is, some of the sort of marginal gains, I guess you could say, when it comes to working from home, is going to be that you still have a commute. What does that mean? You go for a walk each morning, you get dressed, you listen to your podcast, whatever you are doing in your commute is going to be very, very important. It's also going to be that you have some workstation rules. This is my workstation from home. I showed my office on Instagram yesterday, but this is my homework. And then I have my tea, I have my aromatherapy, I have my books. It's a functional place, but this is not me sitting on a couch or sitting on the dining table today and sitting on the patio the next day. It doesn't work like that. You've got to show up fully. And so you've got to have some workstation rules, where you don't engage with social media necessarily during your breaks, et cetera, et cetera. You also have a finishing window. So you've got to own your morning and own your evening. Owning your morning means you have a morning commute and then you have an evening commute because you're going back home. You shut it down. You've got to come up with these things because the company is not going to be like, all right, everybody, let's turn down the intranet. No, shutting down the email, shutting down work, saying I'm going to be with my family now, I'm going to be without technology now is going to be very important. Also having set meal times. A lot of people gained a lot of weight during COVID because we're just used to sort of lounging about and eating in our homes. But now we've got to come up with a healthy routine that says, okay, this is not my rest and recreation space. This is my workplace. And I eat in the morning and I eat in the afternoon, I eat in the evening. These are my hours. This is my snack. What we used to do when we used to go to work. So some of that is going to be very important. And then obviously keeping the positives of working from home, because we can almost get sucked into the negatives a little bit too easily. So that's going to be one lesson we are going to have to learn very quickly if you have not learned it. And if you find yourself sort of deflated and not energized, then you're going to have to find a way to make that a little bit more accessible to you, to stay inspired and engaged and fully present while you're at work. Very close to that idea is that technology is a great servant and a poor master. Yeah, we've all become a little bit obsessed with technology. And let's just be real here, guys. We are not meant for this. Yes, Zoom is great. And yes, I operate from my home 2 days a week or 3 days a week, but I still go in whenever I can. And there are some meetings that I will have in person. And there are still some clients that I will see in person because I just know the impact of that is going to be a lot different. Motivation is different. Clarity is different. Your attention is different. Your feeling overwhelmed is different. Having 30 people on a screen is very different from having 30 people in a room. And if you forgot, maybe you should have those 30 people socially distanced in a room, because I can tell you, I forgot. I forgot what it felt like to sit with a client and what it felt like to sit within a meeting, and how less cerebral I was because my whole body was working in that session. I could feel the energy. I could move the energy from my body. And if I'm not, I'm just focused with my mind. I'm focused with my mind. And then I feel drained. And that Zoom fatigue is real. And that Zoom gloom is real because we are not fully there. And so as much as possible, it's going to be very important to meet in person, even if that means you have to meet in like a workspace that is not your office, but actually going and renting a space that is a workspace for that afternoon to have some meetings. I think it'll be very important. And I think those things are coming up more and more now. And also having a healthy relationship with social media, having a healthy relationship with streaming videos. I can tell you the uptake on even just my Instagram went up. Why? Because people are just more engaged with this content. And as much as it's good stuff out there, guys. It's not the real world. You've got to adopt small habits in the day to curtail the use of technology as much as possible. Okay, and engage with the real world. What does that look like? Okay, one, don't use technology in liminal times, liminal periods. What do I mean by this? I get off of this Zoom call and I have 5 minutes before the next one. That is not the time you want to grab your phone and check out what's happening on Instagram. That is the time you may want to go walk, go make yourself a cup of tea, go have some water, go open the window and get some fresh air. That's what you want to do in those periods, because that is what's going to sustain you through the rest of the day. What we end up doing is any space we have, whether it's to go to the washroom, whether we're waiting in the grocery store line, whether we're walking in from the parking lot into the mall, we're looking at our phone because it's boring to look in a parking lot. No, look around you, pay attention. And that's one of the things. When you're walking, don't look at a phone. When you're at stoplights, use that red light as a signal to condition yourself to focus on deep breathing. Red light does not mean pick up your phone. So technology is here to stay, and it is here even more than ever before. You are going to learn. So this is where the Alchemist comes in, how you use it and transform it into something that is helpful for you rather than it using you. Right? Technology is not the demon here. Technology is not the thing to hate or to blame. It is our own habits that we need to manage. And how can it be something that serves you rather than uses you? Because right now, it might be that it's kind of using us and not the other way around. So now moving a little bit closer in to, into our homes, and, okay, there's technology, this is a thing. And now, one of the lessons we learned through COVID and through this pandemic in the last year is that we don't need a lot to be happy. We don't need to do a lot. We don't need to have a lot to be happy. And so I really would encourage to adopt a minimalistic mindset towards the different areas of your life. We did it during COVID. What did I need? How much do I need it? Who am I going to speak to? Who am I going to check in with? So who are the people in your life that really became your anchors, right? These are the people that you invest more in, rather than trying to go off and be a social butterfly again. Deeply invest in the people around you that were there with you through this time. It would also be important to not necessarily feel like, a lot of people spent less money on things. They spent more money on experiences. They bought, picnic mats, and they bought, beach gear. Like, they did these types of things because that is what was meaningful. So stick to that rather than in buying shoes and purses and these types of things. More people opted for experiences. So invest in those experiences, because research shows that they do make you happier than actually buying things. So and then letting go of what no longer serves you. And this would really be about, I'm talking about decluttering emotionally, mentally, and physically in your environment. How can you make it a space emotionally inside of you, mentally inside of you, and physically around you, the place that is soothing and comforting and nurturing to you? And emotionally, that would mean that you let go of your grudges, and that you go on an inner journey to heal some of those wounds, because that's causing emotional chaos inside of you. Mentally would mean to develop different mindsets, different attitudes. So this is what you need to declutter, and this is what you might need to adopt and invest in, okay? So we don't need a lot, and we don't need to have to do a lot in order to be happy. But the things that we are going to want to do, we're going to want to do deeply and more. It's not enough that you know something. It's more important that you do something about that. And I just want to say something on the last point, which is about letting go of what no longer serves you. This really is, think about, why is it so hard for us to let go? we don't let go. We don't let go of the past. We don't let go of the people. We don't let go of the moments. We don't let go because we actually hold on to objects, moments, peoples. We actually hold on to these things because we haven't integrated them inside of us. Their memory hasn't transmuted. So this is where the alchemist comes in. And how can I transmute this moment, this memory, this person's, that is no longer in my life? How can I integrate the lessons and the memories into my being rather than holding on to them and saying, I can't let go? Because what we learned from COVID is that we don't need a lot, and we want to carry that on. It's good for the planet. It's good for you. It's good for your peace of mind. And so we want to make sure that we carry that forward. The next lesson that we learned is that our community matters. Loneliness and injustices are threats to everyone everywhere. And we learned that this year more than any year. When someone hurts in one part of the world, it reverberates and it hurts me. And so if they're hurting, it is now my responsibility to do something about that. And I think we all saw that. Right? We all saw the different movements that were happening everywhere because we all felt touched by that. And because of technology, because of globalization, because we all have attachments to different parts of the world now through our different travels, it affects us. It moves us. And so we need to do something about that. So while we are caring for things that matter, do something about it. Why do I say do? Because actions are empowering and they counteract fear. And when we see things happening that are unjust somewhere else in the world, there's fear inside of us too. It is not something that's happening on a flat screen and we're just watching it. We feel afraid. We don't know it. You don't know it. I can feel it, but we are afraid. And when we do something about that, we are now no longer in fight or flight. We are now moving and we're doing something. So let it move you into action. The one thing that I would like to say about this is that do not feel you have to be inundated with news and images and information about the things that matter to you. There's some parts of the world that people actually are like, well, if you knew, sometimes people will be like, do you know what happened yesterday? And I would be like, oh no, I didn't know what happened yesterday. What happened? And they're like, don't you care? No, I do care, but I don't need to know play by play what's happening. I might not need that. I might be too sensitive for that, or I might be flooded with my own stuff for that. So don't feel you need to know play by play as to what matters to you, but just do something about it. If you know that this refugee crisis or Black Lives Matter or the Beirut explosion or what's happening in Belarus or what's happening in Nigeria, if you think that matters to you, or if you feel that matters to you, do something about it, but just protect yourself. Because what happens when we are just watching and these passive sort of bystanders and we're not doing something, I'll talk a little bit about our hero imagination not being activated, but we actually feel helpless in those moments. And that actually makes us feel worse. And we end up feeling a lot more anxious. And then the first point, which I didn't mention, it was assume positive intent about others. As we've all sort of gone inwards and we've all sort of been in our homes or isolated, as some people say, it would be important that we don't forget the goodness in others, because we are seeing so much bad happening everywhere. Assume positive intent about others. And this was an interesting concept for me when I came across it, because we automatically, when there's so much fight or flight going on around us, we immediately assume that this person is out there to get us, because this is just the mode we're in. We're in our fight or flight mode and we're ready to attack anyone. So if someone quits their job or someone leaves us or someone moves, even with this Harry and Meghan, like people felt like violated by that. And they felt like, they should have called us and asked us if they can leave the royal family. And this is how people were reacting. Assume positive intent. Assume that others are acting out of best intention. and they're coming from a good heart. And when you do that, it softens something inside of you, and you don't have cortisol being released inside of you, but also the world is just a kinder place. And then you don't have to walk around with fight or flight all the time. And if you cannot assume positive intent, at least assume neutral intent. So I don't know why they did it, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't for a bad reason. It wasn't because they wanted to hurt us. It wasn't because they're mean people. I don't know. Moving on. Don't let that activate you, because it then disengages you from the community and we need to stay connected. It actually makes us happier people and less lonely people when we feel we belong to a community, to a city, to a country, to a world. It matters to our psyche, and it matters to our spirit. Now moving inwards, the lesson we learned from this last year is that adapting to change is going to be a superpower. Change is happening at lightning speed now. Change is not something that happens, every 5 years. Lightning speed, just when we think we're getting used to something shifts. And so literally adaptation is going to be the new superpower. It is, they quote, what's his name? Darwin for saying this, but I don't think he ever said it, which is survival of the fittest is actually really about who can adapt to change the fastest. He didn't actually say that, but they actually say that he said something like that. So that's going to be very important. Adaptation. And that, at the essence of that, is going to be psychological flexibility and grit. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But adopting a challenge and growth mindset, because I was like, okay, and let's talk about what, I could probably do a whole talk on how can you adapt faster. It's going to be really about self-awareness, guys. It's going to be about self-awareness. I'm going to need to know what I'm capable of, what I'm not capable of, what can I give, what can I not give, what are my resource levels, what are my needs that I need to tend to. All of that needs to happen. When we went into lockdown, I have 4 children that are in lockdown. I have friends, I have a whole clinic, I have, a whole team, I have a whole business. All of that was happening all at once. It doesn't show up, I had elderly parents that were in a different country, et cetera, et cetera. So what do I need to tend to most in that moment? And where is the challenge at? And I'm going to show up as if this was a challenge rather than, oh my God, look what's happening to me. I have so much on my plate. And that victim mindset is actually not going to help you adapt. If you adopt that challenge mindset, all right, this is a challenge. Okay, how am I going to transform this situation? I'm the alchemist here. How am I going to take what's being given to me and I'm going to shift it into something that I need it to be, because this is how we're going to operate. How am I going to bring psychological safety and physical safety to the people in my life, including myself? That is my number one priority. That's what adaptation is about. It is about, how does this new problem create an opportunity for me? And the swiftest of them are going to be able to go indoors faster. They were on Zoom faster. They were having meetings more frequently. They were doing that. And you've got to be a few steps ahead, and you can't resist change. Change is going to happen. So having that growth mindset of, okay, well, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Most people are like, well, that's just the way it's been and that's the way it's going to be. That mind is no longer going to work. The fixed mindset actually is not going to be a mindset that is going to move into the future. Why? Because the people with the fixed mindset won't make it. They actually will break. And so having that fixed mindset of, but it cannot be this way. It should be that way, rather than, okay, we're like lightning years ahead of you already. These people will be left behind in some way. So it is going to serve you. It's going to serve your business. It's going to serve your family. It's going to serve the future if you move with it. And that move is actually quite fast. And so growth mindset, what do I need to learn? What do I need to learn? What do I need to learn? What do I need to learn is going to be very important part of how we move forward. Now, I want to just mention a little bit about psychological flexibility and grit. Psychological flexibility is a concept that comes out of acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's the ability to respond to something that is congruent with our personal values, and not let thoughts and our feelings, you know, these things that come and go, determine what we're going to do. It literally is anchored in a place of values. Human beings can be very functional about our fight or flight, and we actually are fighting and flighting with our emotions and our thoughts. We're not actually fighting and flighting actually real threats out there. Most often, what we are running away from is actually our own thoughts and our emotions. And so part of psychological flexibility is to defuse from the thought and say, I am having a thought that, you know, I'm not going to be able to travel this summer. I am having the thought. So you actually gain some perspective, and that's going to be a very important part of psychological flexibility. Grit is something that Carol Dweck speaks about, which is going through difficult things and holding on for a long-term gain. And that, again, is going to be values-based action. And so the next thing I want to talk about is letting your values be your guide. We all felt lost this year, guys. We all felt overwhelmed, and we all felt lost. The people that felt most grounded and anchored, and they knew exactly what they needed to do in that moment, were the people that were closest to their values. They knew what their values were, and they stepped up into that plate very easily because their values are something they hold very close to them. And so it would be very important to understand what your values are, and let this be a lesson, that let this year be a lesson that our values are going to be the only thing that don't change. Actually, values don't change. Honesty, compassion, love, kindness, humanity, justice, these are timeless. Everything else is going to change, but these things are not going to change. And so we cannot control what happens to us, but we can choose how to respond. And this is where I mentioned something about experiential avoidance and what I mentioned about psychological flexibility. Consider how you can move towards the most important goals and values. Think about what you've done. Actually, I want you to take a second here, a few seconds, and think about anything that you have done in life that was really something you were proud of. Anything. You gave birth, you got a job that you wanted, you finished college, you took a course that you were really proud of, whatever it was, anything you did in life. You did not enjoy every moment of it. There were difficult periods. There was fear that you encountered. There was, boredom that you came across. There was frustration that you came across. Anything that you're proud of in life, you struggled through it, but you held on to that goal and those values, rather than going with every whim of emotions or thoughts that come your way. And that's literally the essence of experiential avoidance, is that we don't go with what we feel. We don't go with what we think. We go with our value. We go with our goal. And anything that comes in our way, it's just something we accept. Okay, here's boredom. Okay, moving on. We don't fight it. We don't fight the boredom. We don't fight the frustration. We just look at it and we move towards our goal and say, this is just part of the journey, because that's how it works. Part of the journey is always going to be boring. Any relationship, anything you do in life is going to be boring. It's going to have frustration. It's going to have challenges. There are going to be struggles. You stay the course, and you stay the course. And that's it. That's one of the lessons we learned, is that we've got to stay the course. And what's going to help you stay the course more is if you really spend time with your values. So I spend time in solitude and stillness to stay connected to our values. Guys, it's too easy to get this way and that way with the world, as loud as it is. When you spend time alone and in solitude, and solitude does not mean you take your phone with you. You take nothing with you. You literally sit alone with a journal in nature if you can. And you take this You can take this viacharacter.org. It's a survey that you can take. It identifies your greatest character strengths and your values that really give life meaning, your particular life meaning, because your values are going to be different from my values. And then you exercise those. So when for my VIA character, my values are wisdom and knowledge, community, humanity. These are some of my top values that show up. It was clear to me what I needed to do when COVID showed up. I actually was not wondering, okay, well, what should I do now? I was on, talking about this stuff for the community, because this is something that we did at the Lighthouse before COVID hit. So we just continued on in Zoom. And within 2 days, we were up and running with our wellness webinars, and we were doing content about how do you keep yourself safe and psychologically well during this period. It was clear. So keep your values journal. Have a journal in which you write your values. So Benjamin Franklin actually used to have a values journal in which he took some of the values he was working on. It wasn't just the values that he was good at, but also the values he was working on. So maybe prudence was one of them, temperance, for example, or frugality was one of them. He was working on some of these things. So what are some of the values you need to work on, and where are you going to do them? That's one thing about experiential avoidance and psychological flexibility. Thoughts don't matter. What you do matters. I can think all day long about patience and calmness, but in the moment, what am I doing? In the moment, how do I act? So it is moving physically towards what you want rather than thinking about what you want. And that's going to be very, very important. Actually, I'm gonna leave it at that. The next thing is about resilience. I know people are a little bit allergic to this word, but there's no other word to actually define it. There's a quote by Dennis Turch. He says, if carrying some anxiety was a necessary part of the journey towards being the person you would choose to be, would you be willing to carry it? Yeah, we would. I would choose anxiety. I want to be this person. But that's basically what suffering does. It makes us more of who we can be. And so part of the lesson here is pain is going to happen whether we like it or not. Loss is going to happen whether we like it or not. Suffering is going to happen whether we like it or not. So how can we just build that into our model, that conflict and suffering are part of living life fully engaged? If I am going to love, I am going to lose, and it's going to hurt. If I am going to give, I am going to be taken advantage of at some point, and that's going to hurt, but I'm going to give. And so how do we live life fully? It's only going to be if we build in room for some conflict and struggling. So adopting a mindset that doesn't glorify happiness and doesn't make sadness something we have to overcome, but just something that comes along with us. It's not something you overcome, guys. I know with this toxic positivity, we all have this idea of, oh, we should be happy all the time. We should be optimistic all the time. We should be looking at the positive all the time. No, we shouldn't. We should actually face the reality. And facing the reality means realistic optimism, meaning you look at the negative and you see the positive that might come as a result of this alchemy. And so there was actually lots of studies done about people who were optimistic, too optimistic, meaning always looking at the positive and not actually looking at the reality of the situation. And they ended up having more sort of mental health issues than if people were realistic optimists. So what if we were to spend one more year on Zoom and not be back in person? Looking at the reality of the situation actually makes us more resilient. Looking at it only positively does not make us more resilient. It actually makes us weaker. And so what is the reality of the situation? And just saying, I'm ready for this. So reframing the tension is also something that in a book called Crucibles of Leadership, he talks about, is that where's the learning? Where this is also about alchemy. Here's the tension, and what can I learn from this? Here's the tension, how can I transmute this into a lesson? And instead of being outraged by life's betrayals, how can we take a stance of courage? Right? Oh my God, why is life doing this to me? Rather than, all right, what did this come to teach me? And that's what resilience is. Resilience does not mean that you don't hurt. Resilience means you hurt, but you don't stop. That's what resilience is. Resilience comes from the Latin word resilio, to bounce back. Bounce back meaning actually you fall flat on your face sometimes, and then you stand up and you do it again next day, and you show up the next day. The next thing that we learned from COVID is that we can all be heroes. We saw so many heroes this year, and in the news, and essential workers and nurses and, janitors and bus drivers and, 100-year-old men that were walking to raise money. These were the heroes that showed up. And actually, there is a framework, created by Philip Zimbardo of Stanford, where he actually said that we can all be heroes and we can all create and cultivate a hero inside of us. And I was thinking, how am I going to do this for my kids, right? So he actually created a framework, and it actually requires 4 things. One, well, that's not the first thing, but imagine yourself as a hero in waiting. I'm like, at any point you will be called upon. Hero is just a normal person like you and me, but they have these 4 things inside of us. The first thing is they are absolutely concerned for other people in need. It matters to them what is happening in the world. It moves them, it shakes them, it rocks them, it bothers them. These people are not related to them. These people are not in their same workplace. It could be anybody, but what happens to people matters to them. So let people matter to you. The next thing is they are ready to defend a moral cause, and they will actually engage in it voluntarily. This is not something that is asked of us. This is not something, are you going to step up? No, they actually just step up because that's just who they are. They are people like this. And so when are you going to be ready to perform that act and be ready to defend it? What matters to you? Know that there will be a personal risk. So these people know that there might be their physical health or their reputation. And you know what? In this world, it's like cancel culture. Everybody is like afraid of getting canceled by one person or another. But will you still step up? Will you still speak the truth when it matters? Will you still stand for someone, even though that person might not be the most popular person on the planet right now, but it is something that you believe in? And then they take action without the expectation of reward. That's a hero. These 4 things. We can all be heroes. And that's something that we can all cultivate, because part of that hero cultivation is having that growth mindset that, you know what, it's not something that I did before, but I can do it now. Mindsets, that's the thing about mindsets, that they can be changed and we can cultivate them. And one of my favorite quotes is by Martin Luther King, which is, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in moments of challenge and controversy. That's the ultimate measure of a man. All of us are too good in our heads, but when push comes to shove, where are we going to stand and how are we going to stand? And then lastly, grieving what we have lost deepens our experience with what we have. Grief work, guys, is soul's work. We are too good with new beginnings. We are too good about looking at the future, too good about having a vision, but we've lost touch with our souls in that sense that we aren't grieving what we have lost. And so I want you to honor this day. I want you to honor what you have lost. Grief is essential to finding and maintaining a feeling of emotional intimacy with life, with one another, with oneself. And 2 of us are feeling so disconnected. All of us are on Zoom most of the time, but our bodies hold that. Our bodies hold that memory, they hold that grief, and we're disconnected to it. So connect to that part and learn to stay present with what we lose. Let it hurt, let it break you, let it be something you carry with other people. Join the support groups that we have at the Lighthouse. You do not grieve alone. Grief was never meant to be carried alone. And so we usually go to amnesia or anesthesia when it comes to grief work. We just want to forget it, or we want to anesthetize it through all of our, Netflix and our social media. Feel the pain and let it change you. And one of my favorite quotes about grief is that grief dares us to love once more. Grief dares us to love once more. Because if you really feel the grief, that means you've lost something that you loved. And then you will love again, and that you will feel again, and you will move into the future with that part of you activated. And that's the ultimate reality of life, guys, is that we will all lose what we love. And at one point or another, by keeping that idea close to us, we will be compelled to act urgently. We will be able to express wholly. We will love deeply because we hold grief close. Because grief and compassion, grief and love go hand in hand. When I think about losing the people in my life, I love deeply. I'm more able, I'm more engaged. If I think about losing what I have, my home, my job, I'm able to engage with life a little bit differently. So stay close to the grief because it will actually deepen your experience of life. So that's all I have for you guys. I'm able to take some questions for those people who have to leave because I'm all the way up to the hour. You can direct message me on my Instagram account. I'm not going to show that because we don't have time. But I want you, maybe I will show it once I answer some questions. But this is my Instagram account. You guys can direct message me if you would like. All right. So let's see. I'm reading the questions now. So somebody said that when we call someone a hero, they don't necessarily appreciate that because it makes them feel like they're not human. We didn't say superhero, we said hero. And hero is human. And I think if people don't feel appreciated, then they probably need to do their own work. But if someone is being called a hero, then that is us saying that you saved us, right? You saved us, you sacrificed yourself for us. And not everybody who is in the position of a hero has owned up to their hero-ness. And so maybe that's the work they need to do. That if, we were frontline workers as mental health professionals, I can tell you that we did not have space for our emotions at this time. I'm a doctor. I was in the front line in the sense that we had all sorts of mental health crises coming through our doors. And I have 4 children and I have my own pain and I have my own suffering and I have my own, sadness and my own losses and my own deaths. But I had to put that aside and show up every day for my team and for my community. And so I had to step into that role of being a hero, whether I like it or not. And so with great power comes great responsibility. And if you are a doctor or you are a nurse, then there is a responsibility you have, and you signed up for that. And that makes you a hero, whether you like it or not. So it's better you just step into it rather than sort of disown it, because that just makes you more resentful. So yeah, I would say that to all the doctors and nurses who don't want to be, then you need to leave that profession, because this is precisely what we signed up for. We didn't sign up for a 9-to-5. We signed up for this. Let's see. Let's see. In the resilience slide, this webinar was what I needed. Thank you. You're most welcome, guys. Most welcome. Let's see. You're choosing to suffer. Let's see. What did I say on the resilience slide? Oh yeah. Okay. Let me repeat that quote. So if carrying some anxiety was necessary part of the journey towards being the person you would choose to be during this crisis, would you be willing to carry it? We want to be our best selves, right? We want to be the strongest self. We want to be the highest self. We want to be the most value-driven self. But if that meant that you had to carry anxiety, that meant you had to carry responsibility for other people, if that meant that you had to carry things that you didn't want to carry, would you do it? Yes, you would. And this is, again, the idea of moving towards values and goals rather than, oh, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. Oh, this feels scary. Or this is not what I wanted. These are all thoughts and feelings, guys. These all come. They're all inside of me also. But how do I keep my eye on what I want of myself? What kind of person will I be proud of once this is all said and done? That's what I keep my eye on. I don't necessarily keep an eye on these momentary feelings that come and go. Of course, I pay attention. If I feel depleted, I need to honor that and I need to take care of myself. And to be a hero, you've got to go in for recuperation and rest and repair. I absolutely would prioritize my physical body in times of crisis. That's what I did. Immediately when there's a crisis in my life, I move into my physical body and I say, all right, you're going to carry me because this is going to go all over the place. My heart is going to go all over the place. The only thing that I can count on is my physical body. So I go, what am I eating? What am I sleeping? What am I drinking? What am I this? What am I that? Immediately I move into what will carry me through this. So that is one of the things I do in times of any crisis, by the way. So that would be very important because everything else will come and go, but you need to take care of your physical health. You need to. And if you are working 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week, because that's what's being asked of you at this time, then you need to be on the flip end of that. Absolutely number one priority would be your physical and psychological health. What do you need for that? Because this is what is being asked of you. And this is what was asked of the Lighthouse. All the doctors and all the clinicians that are working there, they all had to step up to the plate. And we all said, okay, what are you going to do to take care of yourself? What am I going to do to take care of you? So it does become about that because you cannot be a hero for anyone, your children, your parents, nobody, if you are not functional. So how do you keep that going? So how do you go through grief without adopting a victim mindset? I think one of the things which I said in the earlier slides is, what has this come to teach me? And how will I transform this? So look at grief as an alchemical substance that has been given to you. It feels painful, it feels hot, it feels heavy. How are you going to transmute that into something else? Wisdom, learning, compassion, love. How are you just going to ride that and say, it's here to grow me, it's here to change me? It's a very painful process, but it is a process that actually makes us more human. Speaking about robots, because we are not doing the work of grief, we are becoming a lot more robotic in that sense. And so there's a beautiful book, which I have with me all the time. Actually, it's probably on my bedside table. And it's called Wild Edges of Sorrow. And it's the most profound book I've ever read on grief. So I would really encourage you to read that book by Keller. Is it Keller? I don't know. Where is that book? Anyways, I'll post it on my Instagram today. So, and guys, grief work is life work. It's not like, oh, I've done my grief work. I'm telling you, for the next 20 years, I'll be processing what just happened in the last year and how it changed me. So it's really important to spend time with this, and you know, I'll think about it for the next month or two, and then I might not think about it for a while, and then something will happen and I'll think about it, and then I might not think about it for a while. But grief work is like an upward spiral. Every time you come up along that elevator chute, you will actually see it again, and then you will see it again. And that's how feelings come, and you process them and you transmute them, and then something else shifts inside of you. This is a lifelong journey. To be this way, what I just shared with you, whether it's resilience, whether it's values, whether it's, living with courage, any of these things is a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong way of being with something. It is not something that you're like, okay, I'm done now. I know what my values are. Lifelong choices. Every single day, you have a choice to show up a certain way. And this is what we have to remember. What you do every single moment of every single day will shape your destiny. As someone said, I don't know, they give this to Mahatma Gandhi and someone else and Maya Angelou, all sorts of people have said something where your thoughts become your beliefs. No, your beliefs become your thoughts become your actions become your habits become your destiny. It starts with just mindset and what you are thinking and what you are doing every single day. And like Aristotle said, that excellence is a habit. I would say that living to be a hero is a habit. How do you show up for your highest self every single day? How do you show concern for other people every single day? It's a habit. It is not something that you just wait for that one glorious moment. How can you be a hero for yourself or for anybody in your life every single day? It's how you show up. And then when that moment comes, it's instinct and you act. You don't think about it and you just do it. So that's all I have, guys. I'm gonna let you all go. If you guys have any other questions, there's a lot of thank you here. People saying it's okay not to be okay. Yes, I cry because I am moved. I'm okay. It's not that I'm not okay, actually. I cry because I am moved. And I let life move me. And I'm okay to cry. And it was like a little bit awkward silence for a second because you guys are all sitting on the other side thinking, okay, what's this lady doing? But I am very okay to cry. And I'm very okay to say that I'm very okay when I cry. I'm actually fully alive in that moment when I cry and deepened by that moment. So thank you all for being a witness for that. I will see you all again very soon. And yeah, happy anniversary, guys. And I hope that you keep these lessons and that we keep together and we keep learning as we move forward. Take care, guys. Bye.